Hello, I'm Jonasz Szerwiński and you're watching TVP World Talks, where every word matters. Georgia's path towards the European Union is becoming more and more perilous and uncertain, with the Georgian Dream party not even hiding their intent to dismantle liberal democracy in favor of something else. Has Georgia bought a one-way ticket to authoritarianism? And as it is living the Georgian dream, most likely of a certain dreamer at the Kremlin, can anyone still provide a wake-up call? Joining us now is Grigol Julukhidze, Associate Professor at the Caucasus University. Hello and welcome to TVP World.
Good morning.
So the Georgian dream is turning into a Georgian nightmare for many citizens as they see that democracy is slowly slipping away. Can this process still be reversed?
Possibly we can expect some positive changes because the protest is growing on a daily basis, and the manifestation and the illustration of my opinion was the New Year's Eve, when dozens of thousands of Georgians celebrated together upcoming 2025 on Rustaveli as the symbol of protest against the current government. And apart from that, we see the growing pressure from the West in terms of sanctions over the ruling team in Georgia, which means that the game is not over. The other way around, we expect further, let's say, progress in this direction, because I don't see any scenario in which these protests might be stopped by the vast majority of Georgians, because there is no other solution. And I very frequently call these processes as the last battle for Georgia to stay away from the Russian clause, and that's why Georgians have almost nothing to lose in this regard.
What about these sanctions? How likely are they to be effective? I mean, the United States have imposed sanctions on Bidzina Ivanishvili. These are still personal sanctions. There are questions whether he might have actually transferred his assets out of the US to prevent that from being effective. And also there is the European Union. Now, the European Union doesn't have the same degree of unity because there are countries such as Hungary or Slovakia who say, no, we don't want to impose any sanctions here.
I would say that the biggest and largest portion of sanctions come from the United States. If they decide to act dramatically, it will be devastating for the current Georgian government, because we talk about the Georgian government, not Belarus, not Iran. They're much stronger in their unity and resources. We talk about the Georgian government, which is very limited in terms of political actions, does not have huge support in the society. And apart from that, the human resources matter also. And in this regard and in this direction, they are also very limited. That's why everything depends on the intentions of the White House. If they decide to act seriously, they will do it. But I'm not sure that their vision is the following or corresponds to my, let's say, opinions. That's why we see a certain level of uncertainty and still expect the clearer messages from the upcoming White House administration. And I'm sure that once they make decisions, many EU member states will follow their example on the national level. And I remind you that Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia have already made decision to sanction those officials who are responsible for an extreme violence against the demonstrators. To cut a long story short, I would say that we have to expect the new package of sanctions by the end of January.
But do you think that this will be sufficient? Some skeptics say that this might proved to be largely symbolic, that without a coherent strategy, also a coherent strategy within the Georgian opposition, this will not be effective. You will have some MEPs coming to Georgia for a couple of days, taking pictures, posting something on social media, ticking all the right boxes, but knowing that this is not going to bring about the collapse of the Georgian Dream government, especially since they have now managed to usurp the office of the president as well, by placing their own candidate instead of the outgoing pro-European leader of Georgia.
Exactly. I absolutely agree with you, Jonas, because in order to achieve political changes, you need politicians. And without an active involvement and engagement of politicians, such scenarios almost never end with the wishful political results. And from this point of view, this is the weakest part of the current anti-government wave. Apart from that, we have to understand one thing. If sanctions will be serious, it will dramatically impact the local business, which has always been not openly ardent supporter, but still supporter of the ruling team. But once these sanctions hit the business, and this flank of business is in a hunger, then the situation will become even more grave. And that's why I think that their intention most likely will be to hit at least partially the Georgian business, which will not be converted into the disintegration of the small economy. And after that, it is very difficult to predict what's going to happen. But one thing is absolutely clear, that the weakest chain in these mass demonstrations is opposition, which is not able to appear publicly and speak about their plans because they're bankrupted. They're bankrupt. And the Georgian Dream understands that quite well. And this is the only reason why still we have the GD as the ruling team in Georgia.
So why is that so? I mean, given the threat to democracy, you would think that perhaps opposition parties might see this as an incentive to come together and produce some sort of coherent strategy. Why are we not even seeing this right now?
Because of several reasons, in my opinion. First of all, I would say inefficiency in terms of political actions. Georgia is not the capital city or the largest cities. Georgia is also regions where you have to be present every day. You have to talk to everybody. Focusing on the conversation with your supporters is not effective, especially in terms of political results. You have to go beyond. You have to convince those skeptics who believe that the European Union, because of Russian propaganda, is evil, that if Georgia becomes somehow the member of the European Union, the LGBT marriage will be legalized, etc., etc. Because from this point of view, the opposition has failed. They focused on Tbilisi, the capital city. They focused on the universities and think tanks. But Georgia is not university or think tanks. And from this point of view, I see a number of mistakes because of the ignorance, because of the exaggerated personal ambitions, and the lack of knowledge in terms of Georgian society. While the Georgian Dream is quite effective in this regard, they have well-paid consultants, they get a lot of technical or let's say, information support. Most likely they're backed also by the Russians. And yes, we see inequality. But when you are in the political opposition, you have to convince to come to the elections to vote. And one very important thing, when I talk to my Western friends, they always ask me, okay, we understand that the elections might be manipulated, but how come only 53% of Georgians came to vote? While in Poland, 74% of Poles voted in the parliamentary elections. And who is to blame? Of course, the opposition, which was not able to, let's say, convince people to come to vote. Only 54% of Georgians voted. And that's another illustration why the opposition is very ineffective.
So do you think the opposition should essentially fight populism with populism and create an agenda that's going to be easily understandable to rural voters, for example, as opposed to focusing on highbrow intellectual messaging, which, as you said, mostly reaches think tanks, people from the intellectual elite, but not those who are actually able to go and make a difference at the ballot box?
Partially. And also they need new faces, new people with a solid international background. But right now, join the Georgian politics does not seem to be attractive for many Georgians. That's the main problem. But political crises end as well. But I expect that the termination of this political process will lead to the appearance of new political forces. Yes, we lose and we waste the years, but still maybe that's the fate of the country, which is situated in a very complicated geopolitical area. But that's the matter of time. But the only hope that remains in this regard is not to see Georgia under strong Russian influences, from which will be very, very difficult to flee. And that's why we can talk about many strategies, but the main problem is that the faces that are in the opposition are very unpopular. They have been changing parties, slogans, they have been making rebrandings, but these people are the same. I mean, those ones who started their political career 25 years ago, and people are tired of them.
Grigol Julukhidze was our guest today here on TVP World. Thank you very much for joining us and for sharing your insight. And I'm Jonasz Rewiński. You're watching TVP World. Please do stay with us for more latest news and updates.